Hi, everybody. We are talking with Marc Kudisch, who is the Broadway special guest star for Broadway's next hit musical presents the Phony Awards at 54 Below on Friday, July 25th at 9:30. Hi, Marc.
Hi, everybody.
So let's jump right in. How are you
Sure.
feeling about the special guest star role with Broadway's next hit musical?
Well, um, I've already been awarded the phony once, and you always think after the first time, was it a fluke? And now this is the second time, and so you must be really doing something right if your phoniness is continuing to be awarded. So I'm
Not
I'm I'm very
only will
privileged.
I acknowledge that and say you are right, I will take it even further and tell you you are the first Broadway guest star that we have brought back for a second appearance.
Well, tells you something, and I'll leave that open.
I I'm so overwhelmed to think of the other things you might accomplish with this milestone on your resume,
Well, you know what? It just keeps going up and up and up. I mean,
which is great for two guys who were born in the 1960s. That's where you want to be.
Lord, hey, man, the fact that I'm still around, the fact that we're still talking, I mean, I take that as a good thing.
Every day I don't see a walker next to my bed, I think I'm doing something right.
Listen, age is a number, and it's a mindset, I think, more than anything else. And it's a funny thing too, because I'm at an age now where I'm discovering, like, even in my last show, like, I was the old man in the show. And I remember the days where I was the youngest in the company. Everybody does. And it's just a funny thing because I don't feel any different than I did, right? Do you feel any different? I certainly don't.
Not yet.
And it's just that, like, that's why I just say what I have, that, the only difference is just time and experience, and I want to say a little bit of knowledge and wisdom, from the doing of the thing. But other than that, like, put me up against some young 30-year-old any day. Poor fella.
I was going to say there are times I yearn to be put up against a 30-year-old, but those are old dreams. Those are old dreams. One of the things I love about improv is that the audience tells you who they see you as. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They establish how you are seen, and then if you're a good enough improviser, you can transcend that and show them the other things you can be within one show. I love that about improv.
Yeah. Listen, the real, like, my first job in New York City, this is back in 1988. My first job in New York City was with the resident improv company of the Village Gate, which no longer exists, unfortunately. But any of those of us of a certain generation will remember the Gate was, like, iconic. And I was with the improv company there, New York Talk, for 3.5 years. And that was really like the greatest training ground in the world because you can't lose. There's no risk always offers the greatest rewards. What you might consider a mistake may be one of the greatest gifts that could have happened all evening. Um, it's, and the idea of the audience tells you, and at the same time, you're leading the audience, hopefully, in a path that is surprising not only to you, but to them. And it's a genuine engagement of conversation with the audience. And it's only going to happen once,
The
right?
other thing I love about all of that is that improv, through all the different stories it tells, allows you to enhance your technique, your vocal range, your breathing, your sense of staging in a whole different way. Because when you're doing one show for a year, which I've done,
Yeah.
you get into the groove of it all. But
Mhm.
improv is one of the best tools, in my opinion, to keep actors in the moment.
Exactly. Well, that was why I say, like, after doing 3.5 years in a resident improv company, I found that going to auditions, I was better. I was just better because I was in the room in such an improvisational way First of all, improvisation improves your listening, right? If you're really practicing it well, you're out of your head and you're in the space and in the moment and you're listening to whatever the community is. And so in the audition room, I was just so much better and I was so much freer and I felt less self-aware if I had questions or I was presenting myself in a way. I wasn't watching myself. I was just listening to the room and just like looking to want to bounce. And sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't work. But even in that, you'd learn about them so quickly too. And when I'd be on stage 8 shows a week, like you just said, you learn how to relax and open yourself up and get out of what can become a groove, like a literal groove. You're constantly giving yourself the opportunity to explore anything that comes along, and there are always things that are thrown in the middle of the road. And with improvisation, like I've been on stage where things have happened and I've had to improvise my way out. Like I remember there was a situation when I was doing the Apple Tree, and Kristen Chenoweth and I were on stage, and the lights went out. Like we were in the middle of a scene in the second act, and like the lights went out and the power went out. And she and I had to improvise for, I want to say 3.5 minutes, literally in the dark. And we were just going back and forth and just taking up the space and time and talking and like filling. And then the lights came back on and the audience was eating it alive because like that will never happen again. That was a genuinely spontaneous situation. And instead of like freaking out about it, we just rolled with it. And I've been in a number of situations like that on the stage where the audience will remember. I've had people come up to me saying, I was there that night. I was there that night in Philadelphia and Birdie when the lights went out and you guys just did stuff. Or I was there that night when that happened, I like Sutton and Gavin, God rest you, my love, and I were in Thoroughly Modern Millie, and there was this crazy thing that happened on the stage, and the three of us had to improvise like crazy to move into the next scene. And like those are moments that only happen once. And if you're aware and you're present and you're listening with the audience, you'll never forget them. I love that. I love spontaneous, joyful moments where everyone is in on it together.
Well, then you're going to look forward to being part of the Phony Awards on
Love it.
July 25th at 9:30 at 54 Below. All right, great. We're doing great. I've got a couple of other questions for you, okay?
Rocket.
Do you have a heart out at any time?
No, I'm good.
Marc, what do you think is the secret to comedy?
Here it is. Comedy is three-dimensional. Comedy isn't just a rim shot. Comedy is, when I say three-dimensional, for me, comedy is there's like the punch, if you will. But then underneath that, there's the fuel underneath that punch. What is that specifically? And then underneath that, what is the fire to that fuel? Because I'll guarantee you, whatever that fire is, it probably isn't very funny. And that's comedy for me. Comedy is fleshy. Comedy can be a release of tension. Comedy can be an acknowledgement by the community of something that they all go, I recognize that. Comedy can be just someone seeing themselves and laughing loud because they hear a truth in a way they probably wouldn't laugh at that truth socially. That's so like I remember when I was at the Improv years ago, and we would do this thing called the Greenwich Village Poetry Society. And, we would be, we would get a sentence from the audience and we would have to create a poem, and it would be in the style of Robert Frost, in the style of, and I would take it very seriously because I really wanted to do that. Can I do that? Can I create something in the moment in the style of Robert Frost? And I would be so serious about it, and the audience would roar laughing. And in my mind, I'd be going, I don't know what they're laughing at. This is not funny. But whatever the situation was, it was funny to them. And, you know, that's what I love about the idea, because comedy and tragedy go hand in hand, don't they? There's a reason that King Lear was always next to the clown, the fool. Um, so that's me. That's comedy for me. I think that everything is comic, to be honest with you.
I agree.
Um,
I agree. And I think with where we are as a culture right now, that's a scary thought for a lot of people, but that doesn't make it untrue.
Not at all. I mean, look, I mean, I'm deep diving on Mark Twain right now. So, who was the forefather and the king of satire, right? He was our first stand up comedian. He was a brilliant actor, and he dealt in satire like nobody's business. But even he was very eloquent about what satire is and what comedy is. And he even wrote this brilliant piece about how to perform a piece of comic dialogue. And he was very specific about how it should be done. And, you know, I mean, it's, again, comedy's fleshy. Comedy is not just black and white. Comedy to me is not mathematical per se, it's alchemy. And it really is, as we've discussed, so much in the hands of the audience. What is comedy? Um, they'll tell us what they think is funny. You know, like I will say, one of my favorite pieces that I've ever done on the Broadway stage was the play Hand to God, and is a brilliant play, very funny play, and a very not funny play. And I'd be out there every night, and my character was a pastor, um, and a very complicated man. And there'd be nights that I'd walk out there and I had this incredible monologue where half the audience would be screaming with laughter and the other half would be hushing the laugh that were screaming with laughter because they were like, that's not funny. And if it's good comedy, it gives space to everyone to have their own reaction to what they find funny or not funny. And sometimes the not funny is the funniest of all. And that's satire.
I always think that comedy is truth,
Oh,
and
yeah.
truth is confidence. And unless you're confident, you can't get to the truth. It's a circular thing. And I think as a comedian, you really need to know who you are to
Yeah.
own the strength and integrity of your point of view.
Well, exactly. I think the best comedians have intention. The best comedians are not self aware, they're not watching themselves. Look, when I was at the Village Gate in that improv company, that was Top of the Gate, which was a comedy club. So a lot of comedians would jump in with us and, you know, do certain games with us because all of our improvisation, none of it was scripted. We were all improvisation. And we had some very famous comedians jump in with us. And some were incredible and some were very self-aware. You know, I know a lot of comedians and I watched a lot of stand-up. They would crush on the first set, and then on their second set it would be a very different situation, and it's the same material, right? And you
Mhm.
have to bob and weave with all of that. And I think the best comedians, the best comic actors are those that aren't looking for the setup. They aren't looking for the punchline. They're not driving towards here comes the funny bit. They're just telling you a truth and they have intention in what they're saying and they let it land as it will. And because it's truthful and genuine and they have intention behind it, it's going to work no matter what. No matter what the response is, that doesn't dictate the success of it, if that
There've been
makes
a couple of
sense.
there've been a couple of times in Broadway's Next Tip musical where the audience has actually booed at something that I've had to say, and it's still an emotional response.
Yeah,
And I always say to the audience in those moments, you don't get to boo the truth, and then it turns around,
sure.
people feeling.
But the
Um,
beauty is that they boo. The beauty is that they feel engaged enough in the moment to flat out boo, that means they're with you. Do you know? Look, I did Beauty and the Beast for 2.5 years. I was guest on number 2. I was there very early on. And I think I brought a lot to the character that wasn't there before my buddy Burke, just because we're such different human beings. I mean, that's the beauty of a great show, is that you can build and build and build on it. And I remember my first night coming out from my bow. I came out as Gaston, arms wide open, and the place booed me like nobody's business. And everyone on stage was sort of shocked, because I don't know that Burke got booed in the same way, if he got booed at all. And I just took it in. I absorbed it. I went like that, and I just bowed deeply into the boo. And people were like, wow. And some people were like, don't be offended by that. And I was like, are you kidding me? That's the greatest response you could ask for.
Make
like
them
that,
boo louder.
yeah, that means they're in it with you.
Boo
They,
rap.
hells yes, they love to loathe you. That's fantastic.
What do you think, with everything we've been talking about, what do you think is the secret of keeping a show fresh?
Listening.
Boom, just that easy.
That's it.
Now, I've developed a very intentional series of questions called in the moment lightning round, meaning don't overthink, just answer.
Oh Lord, I don't overthink anything.
So just be in the moment. And
Sure.
some of them are opinions, some of them are just straight up facts. What is the first Broadway show you saw?
Oh wow, Into the Woods.
Original production?
I saw the final dress of the first national tour down in Fort Lauderdale. It was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. I was literally weeks away from moving to New York, and the first national was starting in Fort Lauderdale, and I'd never seen it before. It was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. And then at the end of the show, the entire company got off with the music and they had to stop it. And no one knew, but Sondheim and Lapine were in the house. And so they walked up on stage to talk to the maestro and talk to the audience, because it was like a final dress that the local community had been invited to. And to see them there actually in process still, I'd never seen that before. And I didn't sing, by the way. I didn't sing a note. So music theater was like something distant to me still.
Really?
And oh yeah, no, I moved to New York a dramatic actor. I didn't move to New York singing. I wasn't music theater at all. But that really lit a fire of like what process must be like. Because there they were, still in that process with their national tour. So.
And the evolution, realizing or getting to participators see that the evolution of something leads to the final result, that as you said, it's a process.
Sure. Who cares about result? Stay on your intent. Result comes. That's not something you have to focus on, in my opinion.
I miss that about being a student. I loved getting to fail. As long as it was motivated, that was a good thing. What was your first Broadway audition?
Fiddler on the Roof. The revival with with one of the revivals with Topol.
And for which role were you auditioning?
Oh, I was going in for Perchik. It's a whole story. They called me in 3 times because of my last name, Kudisch. I am Jewish, and every time I walked in, they saw Fietka. Yeah, I'm one of the goyest looking Jews in the Broadway community. Me and Douglas Sills, and it was crazy because I kept going in. They kept calling me in because of my last name, and I kept gawking in. And then they kept saying, "Ooh, Sietka," and I was like, "I'm not a tenor. I'm a baritone." And it was crazy. It was again another interesting experience to have. To have people literally, like look at me and just again that linear sort of typing of people. Which is why I also love improvisation, because with improvisation, you sort of have to let all of those linear staples go. That's the whole point.
I remember seeing Golda's Balcony a million years ago, and I was
Yes.
sitting with some Jewish women. And so I had some questions just to understand the background of what I was seeing. And I turned to them and I said, "May I ask you a couple of questions?" They said yes. And I said, "Well, number one, I'm not Jewish." And all three of them in unison went, "No kidding," and cackled. It was very fun. Um,
Listen, I've played a minister 5 times in my
yeah.
career, you know, and I've loved it, by the way. It's again, it's why I'll say it again. It's what I love about improvisation. Anything and everything is possible. It is yes and.
What was your first Broadway show you appeared in?
Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
And who did you play?
I was Reuben, the oldest brother. I sang the country western One More Angel in Heaven.
Who was Joseph in that production?
Michael Damian.
Oh, Michael Damian from Young and the Restless.
Michael Damian, what a sweetheart. What a
He,
sweetheart.
he
It was a
brought a
great
lot.
cast. Oh my God, the cast was packed. It was such a good cast. For me, I felt very, again, like I'd grown up on the show. It was a very big part of my growing up, that and Fiddler, you know, and to do that as my first Broadway show was really cool. And then also, you know, you're working with Andrew Lloyd Webber and you're working with all of these incredible actors. And I play the oldest brother, and I was the third youngest person in the show. And it was a huge learning experience, but it was great.
Awesome. What is your first memory of meeting your now wife, Shannon Lewis, who also is part of the Broadway community?
Well, it's interesting. The first time we met was sort of in quick passing. Um, she was doing a showcase for a really wonderful choreographer, and Vanessa Williams was sort of like producing it. And I was friends with Vanessa because we had worked together. We did the film Bye Bye Birdie together. We had done the workshop of The Wild Party together, and we were friendly. And it was an incredible workshop. And anyone who knows Shannon as a dancer, which, you know, is in her past, she was an incredible performer, still an incredible performer. She chooses to choreograph now incredibly well. But I remember even Vanessa saying to me, like, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, I mean, David's incredible. He's a wonderful choreographer." And she was like, "No, what did you think of Shannon?" And I said, "Well, Shannon's incredible. She's like one of the best dancers of her generation. She's amazing." And Vanessa was like, "No, what do you think?" And I was like, oh, I don't know about that. I just was like, I don't know about that. And then Shannon and I ended up bumping into each other at the bank. Um, Literally, I was standing behind her at the bank, you know, the Actors Equity Bank, and, you know, the credit union.
I'm
And I was like, yeah. And I just was like, Shannon Lewis is standing in front of me. And so I just sort of pop, 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 pop. And I was like, "Hey, Shannon, hi. Remember me, Marc Kudisch? Just, you're great. I really think that you're really super talented." And I was a huge admirer of her talent. She's one of the best actors. When she's dancing, she's genuinely one of the best actors I've ever seen. I've never seen anyone with so much focus and intention.
So what I hear you saying is thanks to Vanessa Williams, you were saving the best for last.
Oh, sure. I get that pun.
I think that's the title of her
But I
book.
have to really say thanks to the Actors Federal Credit Union, for having a long line that day. And like, because so many actors were cashing their checks that day, back in the day when we did that, that gave Shannon and I the opportunity to actually talk. And then and that's the end of that. That was 24 years ago, I think, or something.
I've never fallen in love in the line at the Actors Federal Credit Union, but a shout out to them just the same. They are an important,
Hey,
wonderful organization.
I love them.
What's your favorite audition song?
I feel a song coming on.
And I'm unfamiliar. What musical is that from?
It's really old. It's from the late 1920s or early 1930s. I want to say it's from one of the Gaieties. It's a real look. Um, it's the song, I feel a song coming on and I'm warning ya. It's a glorious, fabulous, glorious new strain. It's just this song about, I feel a song coming on. And like, I loved it because it was just such a happy up tempo. I sang the song like I had to take a crap. So I feel a song coming on wasn't a happy thing. I was going to lose it in my pants right where I was. And so it turned from this, I'm going to be sick, to my body can't help itself. And then it opened up from there. And that's what I sort of loved about the song. I wanted to take it and turn it on its face and go in a direction that was unexpected with it. And I knew no one else was going to be insane enough to do that with it. And I loved it. I loved that song. So I had two auditions in one day, and I decided I was going to use the song for both of them. They were back to back. One was for the season up at Maine State, which was, right, exactly. And the other was for the workshop of a new Kander and Ebb musical, Steel Pier. And so I went to Maine State first, and I had my auditions for Charles. It was Repoli at the time. And I sang this song to him, and I finished it, and he just looked at me. And I said, would you like to hear anything else? And he said, why? And I said, okay, well, thank you. And he said, I'm still thinking about that. And I left, and I went, well, I guess that didn't work. And then I went in to my audition for Steel Pier. And the very same song, sung in the very same way, had Fred Ebb and John Kander in tears. And I had Paul Gemignani cackling like nobody's business. And anytime you used to audition for Gemignani, that was always my goal. If I could get Gemignani to laugh, I was doing it right. And it went over massively in that room. And that just shows you, right? Like, different people, different things. Like, I went, well, I guess those are the folks I'm supposed to work with because they get me. They get what I'm doing. And I'm not for everybody, and nothing is for everybody, which is why I say, like, even in improvisation, you can't watch yourself. You have to just offer the gift of what you have, and let the audience take it as they will. Like, you can't judge yourself. You just can't. So, long story short, that is absolutely my favorite audition song.
The best laugh, I think, is the laugh that you can feel travel in a theater. One person gets it so strongly that the people around them think, what did I miss? And it grows and it grows and it grows.
In my opinion, the best laugh in the world is one that grows and then simmers and then sort of comes back again. But you can feel folks then going, should I be laughing at this? And it literally takes on this weird mobility of sound. Like, those are my favorite. When you can tell an audience is all trying to go, what's going on?
Or they get the second or third level of a joke. That's
or I will say this: if one of those questions is, what's the best laugh I've ever gotten in the on stage? Hands down, beyond anything I've ever done, the opening of Ah, Sweet Mystery and Millie.
I saw you in that.
The greatest, most massive, most wonderful laugh in the world. And the thing that I learned about that was, stay the hell out of the way. Don't do anything. Just get to it as fast as you can, and don't comment on it. Just do it. Dick Scanlon gave me the greatest laugh that has ever been given to me in anything, anywhere. And I didn't have to do anything to get it. Stay out of the way. It's not for me. It's for the audience. And literally, Ah, Sweet Mystery into I'm Falling in Love with Someone brought down the house every night. And the more we stayed out of the way, kept it moving, didn't comment, and stayed true to the intention, and again, being really serious with each other, the better it went. That was a huge lesson.
What is a song that always makes you cry
Oh,
in a theatrical song?
Sunday. I was just listening to it before this. Always makes me cry. I know it was Steve's, one of his favorite pieces he's ever written. Send in the Clowns as well. The first chords on that will crush you every time. The truth of the chords before words are even spoken. It's beautiful. Um, Do You Love Me? As funny as it is, and it is meant to be funny, is also, in my opinion, the most beautiful romantic duet in Broadway history because it's honest and it's not over romanticizing what it is to be in love or be married. It's a real, honest, genuine question that two people have after being married for a long period of time. I think those are the three songs that move me the most. I mean, there are certainly others. I can be honest and say How Glory Goes is hard not to respond to that song from Floyd Collins. It's just impressive to me that Adam and Tina were able to ask such deep questions at such young ages in their life. And to have done that piece 30 years after they first presented it. And I saw the first performance of it ever in 96. And to complete that journey with them, I've always loved How Glory Goes. I mean, that was music that from the day I heard it to, the last day we sung it in our run at Lincoln Center, I just know by heart. That's a tough song to sit through.
And last question, in a totally different direction. Could you please give me your Phony Award-winning acceptance speech?
So I'd like to thank the Phony Academy for the recognition of my absolute insincerity. I would like to thank all of those people who voted for me for their complete confidence in my ineptitude. I'd like to thank my wife, who knows deep inside how phony I truly am, and that the depth of that phoniness in no way comes near the love that I genuinely have for her. And she will think what I just said was completely phony. And I would like to thank Rob and you, Greg, and the company for trusting me to continue to bring the phoniest shit possible to our community. Lord knows we need it. Lord knows we're being dished out phonier shit everywhere else. At least this is shit we can laugh at.